Hi, and welcome to another episode of The War Bunker. Hello.
Now today we're going to try and help you with one of the most difficult questions as a Warhammer 40,000 gamer that you're going to have to answer.
Choosing an army.
So we've got a collection of our armies here, and we're going to talk you through why you might want to choose one of them.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to start with Space Marines. Most people that get into Warhammer 40,000, Space Marines are probably the biggest army in the universe, really.
Yeah.
Quite popular, and there's a number of reasons for that.
Well, Space Marines and the evil twin.
Yeah, they're evil cousins, the Chaos Space Marines. There's some very good reasons for why they're so popular. They've got a fairly good firepower. They're quite strong and tough, and they all have this a power armor of some sort. This is called the Terminator armor. This is one of the more advanced armor, but they all have probably some of the best armor in the game. Weaknesses, they don't really have any weaknesses. It's just that they cost awful lot of points.
I would say the only weakness they have is lack of bodies and lack of variation of
low numbers
tanks.
So they're often called an elite army. They have some quite decent tanks. This here is the Land Raider, probably one of the best tanks that you can get in Warhammer. At least for toughness, but not particularly for firepower. And when it comes to some of their tanks, they're not as good, for instance, as some of the ones of the Imperial Guard. And next to it is, if you just pick it up, son, is a Dreadnought. This it might look like a robot. In actual fact, down. That's better. In actual fact, inside there is a dead Space Marine that's kept alive. If you remember, we told you that the universe of Warhammer 40,000 isn't very big on technology. In fact, they've gone backwards a little bit, and certain aspects of what you consider to be technology today is actually performed by slightly lobotomized people. Things like servitors, which you'd think to be robots, but they're actually they're actually part machine men. So the Space Marines are a very popular army. They don't go down easily. They're tough. They've got a fair amount of firepower, but you will always feel considerably less of these than you will the people of any other army. Often a third as less. So they're often referred to as an elite army. Now they work quite well with the next army we're going to talk about.
So the next army is the Imperial Guard, or the Astro Militarum, that they are now called as.
Or basically, cannon fodder.
/ the humans, the proper people.
Basically, the Imperial Guard, it's you and me, because as far as I know, most people watching this will be human.
Unless it's in the year
3000.
40,000.
Oh, who knows? It's basically you and me in the year 40,000, given a weapon. Not a particularly good weapon, I might add.
Yeah, a las gun. And don't fall into the thing of, oh, it's a las, as in a laser. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's not good at all. It's basically a flashlight. That's all you get.
That's but basically the Imperial Guard are the kind of like the equivalent of the Russian army. They are mass equipped, but they're given whatever is the cheapest to give them.
The very good weapons for their infantry.
No, so that you get large numbers of their infantry. Their weapons aren't particularly strong. They just rely on shooting lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of shots and hopefully take something down.
Yeah, so you can roughly get about about 3 Imperial Guardsmen to 1 Space Marine in points cost.
Yeah. However, when you're talking about tanks,
that's where the Imperial Guard lie. Their best asset is the mighty tank.
Whereas some of the tanks, whereas the tank of the Space Marines is got some very powerful weapons but very clinical. This just has a big boomy thing at the front, yeah, that takes out large amounts of area, doesn't it?
Yes, it's a large blast template. You can probably get more large blast templates in the Imperial Guard than you can get in any other race, I would suspect.
It's basically Imperial Guard tactics is basically fire every weapon and pulverize.
Make sure you always have at least one of these.
If you love building tanks, just stop the video now. You're Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
But like I say, against that is the weakness of the fact that it's not just about killing the opposition often, it's about taking objectives. And often what you have to do with the Imperial Guard is you have to kind of use your tanks to blow big holes in the enemy so that your men can hold it, because your men
are pathetically weak.
Are pretty weak, and most people can throw you off anything.
Although the Space Marines have tanks, well, better tanks, they don't have the variety of weapons that they can take.
Yeah,
the Imperial Guard can take many different varieties of tanks.
Your typical
tank weapons.
It's just a juggernaut of weapons, actually.
You've got ones like the main battle cannon, the demolisher cannon, the Gatling gun cannon, the eradicator cannon, the auto cannon, and the plasma cannon.
And a lot of those weapons use this big circle, basically. You put it on top of things and pretty much you say, oh, put it on top of things. So pretty much, boom, all that's gone.
Yep.
A lot of appeal to that army. Next, it's Orcs in Space. Yes, Orcs in Space. And I think I need to say a third time, Orcs in Space. They're one of the daftest armies in some ways. They're really crazy. For my money, yeah, one of the funnest armies to read about. Some really weird rules. What I've learned as I've kind of got into the hobby is basically to be an Orc player, you really need to have a great sense of humour. And the best Orc players I've seen have got a fantastic sense of humour. How do you describe them?
You can get so many people on the ground. It ain't even funny.
It's often called the green tide, isn't it?
You can get so many of these. You could probably just collect them.
You can't see it. Let me just... Those!
You can get so many of these onto a field, usually. You can just swamp your enemy in them.
Not so great if you've got to paint them all.
Yeah, well...
This is one of the reasons why it's taken me years to get on top of our Orc players. But they do have weaknesses. They're pretty tough. They're
super bad at shooting.
They can't shoot to save their life. If you are expecting to hit your enemy with shots, this is not the army for you.
Basically, if they were standing right in front of you and they had a gun, they would probably miss. That's how bad of a shot they are.
Yeah. They're not particularly heavily armoured. They are fairly tough to take down, though. They particularly excel at... Basically, they excel at charging at things and killing things in what's called hand-to-hand combat or melee. What they really do quite well, whereas the Imperial Guard do tanks well, they tend to absolutely love fast attack.
These babies.
Yeah, so you've got things like you've got, in a way they're a bit like Mad Max basically. The armies in Mad Max, they've got a lot of things that go really fast and tear across the thing, but they're all kind of ramshackle vehicles that, on a direct hit from almost anything, will kind of come apart. So here's an example of a truck which is carries infantry, and next to it is a
Death Copter.
Death Copter, which is it's a bit like if you've ever seen the movie James Bond movie You Only Live Twice. I'll take it. Yeah, it's kind of a
one man seated vehicle that flies
with rocket launchers.
And basically, I think there's two ways to play orcs. You can go full mass infantry, or you can go mechanized.
Mechanized?
Yes.
I didn't know you could go mechanized.
Yeah, you could well, probably not nowadays because vehicles are pretty
they've
bad.
introduced a new model called the Gorkanaut, which looks absolutely awesome.
You basically just take troop choices in trucks, and you do, I don't know, I think it's like 4 or 5 of those trucks with boys, and then followed by killer cans and whatnot, and that's your mechanized orc.
Yeah. I've built my army up as very much on fast attack. Some limitations there, but it's kind of fun to play. But I'm still relearning how to play them, and they
are hard. I would say hard. They're fun, but they're hard to master.
Yeah, they are. But one of the odd things I've noticed with orcs is you never take it really personally. You kind of really enjoy playing as them, but if you play as Space Marines, they have a great endurance. But when one of your units goes down, you almost want to cry.
You lose like an entire flank, pretty much.
It's a weird thing.
It's a big hole in your army.
Mm-hmm. Next, it's kind of the Legolases of the Warhammer 40,000 universe.
Yes, the good Eldar.
Just the Eldar.
Well, they're the good ones for people who don't know.
Eldar have a fascinating history. They used to be the mankind of the universe, basically, and they used to have a giant empire, and everything was going really good. And then, but they kind of were getting more hedonistic and overindulging themselves, craving every fantasy, and all of a sudden, because they're a psychic race, somehow their brains join together, and basically...
And they spawned Slanesh.
Basically a creature of chaos, yeah? And this creature created a rift in space-time and devoured most of their empire.
But, luckily, some managed to escape.
And basically, when you're playing as Eldar, you're playing as the ones that have managed to escape. Eldar are basically elves. They're long-lived. They're a long-lived alien race. And they have some pretty awesome weaponry. But they've also got a few nifty tricks as well. They don't go big for heavy armour, but they have some weapons that basically cut through things like heavy armour like it's not even there.
Lance weapons.
Yeah. They tend to have a lot of... They don't quite so much rely on armour as they rely on things like holographic projections to kind of mask their vehicles and make them very tricky to hit on things. I know mini wargaming talks a lot about Eldar trickery, but they've got a lot of special rules, yeah. Without the special rules of the weapons as well, they would probably rank as only slightly better than Imperial Guard. But the special rules make them... You use them very subtly. I think Cameron said last time that the Orcs were a difficult one to master, and I think the Eldar are probably, again, an even tougher race to master. Because they're particularly weak, and they can be weak and fragile if used wrong, and they will just fall apart.
Yeah, and each unit is only really specified for one purpose on the battlefield. So Guardians are like your shooting people, and your striking Scorpions are your close combat people. So they have specialized roles in the battlefield.
Yeah. But amongst their roles, for instance, if you use them correctly, they probably have the strongest types. They have some of the strongest types of infantry that you have. It's just that if you use them wrong, they just don't stand up well at all.
No.
So that's the Eldar. Now on the flip side of this are these guys. These evil
Dark
bastards.
Eldar.
They're called the Dark Eldar, yeah?
Although ironically we've painted ours quite light. So they might be, not very dark.
And these are basically sadistic bastards, basically. They've basically, unlike whereas the other Eldar have clung on to their old civilization, which was high and noble. These have basically gone absolutely nuts and berserk.
Nuts and crazy.
All they exist for is going around the universe,
capturing slaves and then torturing them.
Basically causing as much misery as possible because they kind of psychically feed off the suffering that they produce. They're essentially a kind of vampire. It's kind of a space vampire. It even goes into great details in the Codex to explain that they're basically got very, very, very pale skin. Despite having stolen two suns from populated worlds to power their massive city-state of Comora, and yet somehow they don't get any sunlight from that. And because they're such bastards, they stole it from populated planets, because that's how they roll.
Because Dark Eldar.
Bastards. Even trickier to play than Eldar, these have some quite powerful weapons, but they don't have even they don't even have that. So this tank here is called a Falcon, and there's not really an equivalent within the Dark Eldar. What they do have is they have these fantastic skiffs.
Raiders.
They're called raiders, and they're essentially a bit like in Return of the Jedi, the little barges that they tried to push. They are, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Have you not realised that?
No, I didn't think about it.
If you remember, Jabba the Hutt has got these barges then, and they try and push Luke into the Sarlacc pit. Well, these are like the barges that are above the Sarlacc pit. Do you want to turn it sideways? And these basically carry their armies into battle. And basically the infantry have got some pretty good weapons. Pretty gruesome weapons as well. They excel at the weaponsmith of killing people, and basically have got many different poisoned weapons, things that seem to open black holes up inside you and split you open.
Yeah, all hell of weapons that can kill people.
Yeah, not nice people. War's not a nice thing ever, but these are kind of like the scumbags.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend meeting these guys.
Yeah. And I know some people, and I have to admit, reading the Codex, it keeps making a big deal about how evil they are and telling some of the things, and you're going, okay, you could just leave it at they're evil. They like to torture people. Don't say anything else.
Now we have the Tau Empire.
Now the Tau Empire were slightly weird. They are the latest. They're the latest race to be added.
Yes.
What they are quite odd about is that they don't have a fantasy counterpart, do they? Whereas so far we've had elders, which are elves. You've got orcs, which are orcs. Basically, a lot of the original Warhammer 40,000 was based on the fantasy version, and they just updated the races to be space races. Now these guys are best described as... A lot of people describe them as not really fitting in Warhammer 40,000, which is a very dysfunctional universe. But they're a bit like the Federation from Star Trek in the fact that they're a very do-good and high-tech race, that have gone out into space and want to integrate well with other races.
Basically, they care about the welfare of everyone else.
But they also kind of... As long as Yeah, it seems very benevolent, but you dig into the details and they're into the welfare of everyone else as long as they kind of bow down to their ideology completely.
Well, in the earlier codexes, they were the really good guys, like you could not find a fault. But now, in the later editions, people have been moaning that they're not dark enough to fit into the Warhammer 40k universe. So Games Workshop has now made them a bit darker, although they're still technically the good guys in the
Compared
universe.
compared to those bastards, these are the good guys.
Yeah.
You actually have a chance with these guys.
So, yeah, the Tau, unlike many of the other factions, Tau are only in the eastern fringe of the galaxy.
There's quite contained.
And they don't really have, like, a full, like, a wide of an empire as many of the other ones.
Yeah, they're quite clustered. For my money, I would say that really the Tau probably have the best models, and I know I've said this before.
Yeah, I think they do too.
They have absolutely the most gorgeous models that you can imagine. Yeah, just absolutely amazing. Really, what you'd expect from a science fiction game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think out of all the races, the Tau are the most science fiction race out there, probably.
If Apple were to design a Warhammer 40,000 race, it would be the Tau.
Yeah, so unlike many of the other races, Tau are very much about battle suits.
Yeah. A little bit like the Space Marines, they've got this good match between armour and firepower as well, haven't they?
Yes. They've got a lot of good, capable units that can put out a lot of firepower.
Yeah. So they really excel at the doctrine of firepower.
Yeah.
We've often put, for instance, the Tau up against, in battles, against the Orcs for the very obvious reasons of trying to pitch together a fighting army versus a...
Tau are a range combat, but suck at close combat.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's interesting to see, like, battles that are against close combat races, because in the lore, because the Tau are a mobile strike force, basically. They don't like playing defensive. They like assaulting and outflanking and all that. And it's weird to think of that when you come up against races that are close combat. Yeah, it's weird. So basically, Tau have the best weapons in the game, is what I would think, because...
But they have... the thing is, they have the best overall standard weapon. Yeah. So on the tank, on this is what's called a...
Hammerhead.
On the hammerhead tank, you're going to have to point. Is what's called a railgun. And the strength 10, the most amazing
the most powerful weapon in the 40,000 universe.
However,
before you get into Apocalypse.
However, I would say that the Eldar, which has a strength 8 weapon, is pretty tough as well. Because it's got a strength 8 lance, but because it's a lance,
it brings the armor value down to 12.
Yeah, it means that anything... It treats anything armor value of 12, 13 or 14 like it's armor 12.
Yeah.
So we've got to do a Falcon versus Hammerhead battle.
That would be good, yeah.
Yeah, that's just been asked for. Your standard soldier,
the Fire Warrior,
carries a pulse rifle.
Yeah, these are pulse carbines. A pulse rifle is a longer barreled version.
What is it?
Yeah.
Are they?
They're the assault ones.
All right. Strength 5, so it's one of the most powerful handguns that any unit has. Cameron has used it quite effectively to get behind vehicles, which typically have strength 10 armor on the rear.
Yes.
And just rip a hole through them.
Drones are great for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drones are very, very maneuverable. That's their robotic servants. And then we've got this little thing, which again I would say is probably no.
Oh,
Riptide.
sorry.
Mr. Riptide. Probably the best model in that entire game. Yeah. It is a fantastic model. In fact, bring it forward, or and it's out of shot.
Yeah.
It's just a fantastic model. It's basically a giant mech suit, the kind of thing you'd see in Pacific Rim. Yeah. Look at that bloody cannon. Yeah.
Except they don't go in close combat.
Not very good in close combat. I think I've actually had a squad of these, 2 squads of these little buggers. Yeah. These are my scouts, and they kind of like held it in place for the rest of the game. Don't think it was against you. I think it was at a tournament.
No, it was at a tournament. Yeah.
And then basically it kept this thing out of play for the rest of the game, and it was like, yes, victory for me because I'm awesome.
They're basically it's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Except he's alive. He's not dead like the Space Marine ones. He's actually alive.
Yeah. But it's amazing model, and people love to play them as well.
Yeah.
Very tough to take down. I've started to manage it. The best thing you can probably do sometimes is to ignore it. So look, if you love Japanese animation,
they're very much Japanese.
This is the model.
Based,
This is the army you've got to collect. This is it. I actually think, I love the Tau, and I'm really pleased Cameron collects them. If I didn't have Space Marines, I would probably collect Tau. Oh, probably would.
Really?
Yeah.
What you said you wanted.
I absolutely love. The army is brilliantly written. The everything about them is really interesting to read. They're not as much fun as, say, the Orcs, for instance. But the models are the models are amazing. Yeah, if you're just building it, if you're just doing it to collect models, yeah,
go with the Tau.
I'd absolutely go with the Tau. We sometimes wonder, because of collected Space Marines, for instance, should I have gone for Chaos Space Marines? And every so often I play against a Chaos Space Marine player and end up having to pick up some of his models at the end. And Space Marines are covered in spiky bits, aren't they?
Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, and basically I almost always end up hurting myself on them, and it's like, yeah, that's the reason why I don't collect Chaos Space Marines. Yeah, Chaos Space Marines. We should just speak briefly about. They're interesting.
Basically, they're Space Marines, except they're tainted.
And yeah,
that's the.
They've got a few demonic forces that they've.
Demons, yeah, that's what they've got.
Yeah. There's 2 armies that we've not talked about at all, and we can't really talk about either.
Well, we can. We can just mention them.
Which is what we're going to do.
Yeah, they're the Necrons, which are robots that can come back to life, basically.
They're basically like Terminators, really, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're based off the undead.
Basically, Skeleton Horde.
The Skeleton Horde in Warhammer.
Yeah.
And then there's
Tyranids.
The Tyranids.
These are pretty much based from the bugs from
Aliens. Starship Troopers. Yeah,
and Alien a bit.
Yeah.
They're like an alien horde. They basically arrive in a spaceship and they basically consume a planet.
Yeah, basically it's like
a large insect swarm.
One big bug controls them all. Yeah, it's basically how it works.
We have got some Tyranid models somewhere, but we never really collected them. Yeah, that's right. I broke part of this model. Yeah. Hey, look at that. And I decided to make the best of it by making it look a little wee bit battle damaged.
I think we actually might have a Necron.
I thought there was some just to the side. But yeah, you can't collect every army, basically. And we've only really we've added 2 new armies. We've added 2 new armies this year, which is the Elder and the Dark Elder. And we spent a lot of time. We've owned these orcs for years. In fact, Cameron talked about getting the orcs. We got the orcs in probably the first Space Marines we collected.
A Tyranid.
Hey,
An old Tyranid, I might add.
yeah. So we got the Space Marines and the orcs in some of the first models we started to collect when we started to get into wargaming together. And we have a Necron. I have actually cut bits off them to use for different things.
Yeah, basically just a robot.
Yay. And it's taken me years to just get around to just painting up the orcs, which I did as part of a painting challenge recently.
The painting challenge.
And I'm still not finished. One of the problems with orcs being so numerous is there's a lot of the buggers to paint.
A lot to paint,
and I came up with a way to quickly paint a lot of them. And I think over one weekend, and we need to do this again.
Oh yeah.
And we're hoping to use the war bunker as a location for doing some painting videos. Because as you can see, it's very well lit in here, and it's very comfortable as well.
I'm thinking of doing a painting video on how I'm going to paint my towel. And I'm probably going to do one on the Imperial Guard because they're awesome. And I think everyone should be collecting the 24th Regiment of Foot. That's my Imperial Guard regiment name.
Well, that was an introduction to the
Warhammer. 40k races, basically.
Basically. A little bit of the history, why you might want to collect some of them. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope it's helped you come up with some ideas for what you might want to collect.
So subscribe, heretic.
And we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.